Greetings, I am Ray Noble, and I've been an RCMP member for 33 years. I am posted in Grande Prairie, Alberta. In those 33 years, I have worked in British Columbia, Yukon Territory, Alberta, and I spent a brief time working in Ottawa, just prior to going on a one-year mission to Afghanistan. My whole service has been in operational policing, where I've been involved in a wide range of emergency response work. I have a pretty good understanding of emergency and disaster response from a functional policing perspective, but I've become increasingly interested in gaining a broader understanding of disaster management. Major events from the past several years, including the fires in Slave Lake, Alberta, the flooding in High River, Alberta, have given me a new appreciation for the complexity and importance of disaster and emergency planning. Almost all of the literature I've reviewed on disasters indicate there is a bit of a struggle to clearly define what a disaster is, and most sources have some differences, either using different terminology or use similar terminology in different contexts. In Rodriguez et al., they describe a disaster as being a crisis with a bad ending. Cockle adds to the definition by stating that a disaster occurs when hazard risk is realized and overwhelms the response capability of a community. Cockle describes disaster research as a social science throughout his writing. This drove the first change in my perspective of disasters and disaster research. I was always event-driven in my thinking, and disasters extend beyond the event. The simplest analogy is to compare the perception of two landslides of equal magnitude. One occurs in an isolated area that is uninhabited and does not contain any critical infrastructure. The second occurs in the center of a large metropolitan area with high population density. Intuitively, no one has any trouble deciding which is more likely to be a disaster. Preparedness is also a complex issue. Common concepts discussed in disaster literature are that preparedness occurs at the individual community level, at organizational levels, and at government levels. The scope of what constitutes preparedness increases with the size of the community, organization, and the level of government referenced. In Tierney et al., they provide a generic description that states preparedness is an enhanced ability of social units to respond when a disaster occurs. Although discussed as a separate topic, preparedness is almost always considered in concert with efforts to prevent and/or mitigate hazardous events. One of the keys to why preparedness is considered a high-value activity is found in Rodriguez et al., where they note that despite the uniqueness of every event, the majority of disasters resemble previous events. This suggests there is a level of predictability that supports certain specific actions will be of value in most events despite variations that occur. Good planning and pre-event actions will allow pre-placed protocols to address many of the requirements that will be presented in future disasters, allowing a more focused effort to be directed to the unique attributes of that event. Liz Farmer, in her article, describes 3 cities that experienced disasters and used those events to revitalize their communities in the recovery process. Ultimately, that is the focus of disaster and emergency management, to have plans, processes, and the will to persevere in place so that communities will have the ability to work through a disaster and move forward.